Good evening, everybody. Welcome. We've just had the official attendance figures from KPMG, and there's 40,000 of us in this room tonight. And I'd like to welcome all of you. In fact, there's people who actually can't get in here tonight because we've packed the room to capacity. My name is Paul Scott, and I've been asked by organisers to MC tonight. I've got one job: keep things moving, keep things on time. I had the pleasure of MCing the launch of Christine Everingham's and Teresa Doyle's excellent book, Wrong Track: What Drove Supercars to Newcastle a few years ago. So, well, here we are. Here we are tonight. And you can see from the amount of people in the room, there's a lot of interest in this meeting and what's going to be talked about tonight. First of all, I'd like to make an acknowledgement of country. Before we begin proceedings, I'd like to acknowledge and pay respects to the custodians of the land on which we meet, the Awabakal and Warramite peoples. And those of you who saw the news today know that we lost a great Australian today, a Yolngu man, a former chair of the Northern Land Council, an author of the Barunga Statement. And, you know, for all people who are interested in the welfare of Indigenous Australians, it's a very sad day indeed. Look, I'd like to welcome tonight all of you, the public that have come along tonight, to listen, to put in, to make a contribution to this particular debate. I'd like to welcome City of Newcastle councillors, John Church, John over there, Charlotte McCabe, Charlotte, John McKenzie, John, Jenny Barry, and Katrina Walk. I'd also like to welcome tonight the State Member for Newcastle, Tim Crackenthorpe. Welcome, Tim. I know it's a busy night for you tonight. The machinations behind the scenes of the ministries are going to be sorted out later on the phones tonight. We know that you haven't got too long tonight, but we do appreciate that you've made the effort to come along tonight. I think that's a terrific effort. We've received apologies from the Lord Mayor Nuatali Nelms and Deputy Lord Mayor Declan Clausen, and councillors Deanna Richardson, Carol Duncan, Peter Winnie Bartz. They've all sent their apologies. We've also received apologies from our federal MP, Sharon Claydon. So I'd also like to acknowledge tonight that we've got Georgia Lazari, the tourism manager at the City of Newcastle tonight, who's come along as well. And look, I think that we, you know, in the spirit of fairness, we treat all people that are here tonight with respect and give people a chance to put forward their point of view. Look, our first speaker, I'm not going to go through all of the speakers tonight, but to say that we've got 8 speakers lined up, and those speakers are limited to around 5 minutes each, because we want to have time for some questions to the expert panel that's been come along tonight. We've got a wonderful timekeeper down here in Joan, and she assures me that she's ready to wield the axe. So let's keep things moving along. First of all, Joan.
I'll give them one doing when they've got 1 minute left.
One doing?
And then
boom, boom, vroom, 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 when you've got to move on. Okay. Look, our first speaker tonight is Ash Greenaway, who's a designer, and she's here with a partner, Brenton Porter, an architect from a fashion retail store and design studio, The Lair at 41 Hunter Street. They're going to present their survey that they've conducted on local businesses that have been impacted by the Supercars event, and they'll have a maximum of 10 minutes to get this particular information off. Could you welcome, please, Ash and Brenton?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. There's so many people here. I'm Ash Greenaway. I own the Lair on Hunter Street, inside the track, as you might know. And this is Brenton. He's an architect. He's also inside the track with his office, inside the beautiful T&G building. We were prompted to create this survey because we were talking to a lot of our fellow business people about the impacts of the race and what it was doing to all of our businesses in bars, hospitality, retail, professional services. And so we created this survey just to try and get across how everyone was feeling as a majority. We ended up getting about 61 responses, and this was thrown across like every business that we could think of, really. So we didn't bias who we were speaking to people that had a negative impact. We wanted to just speak to absolutely every business and get a strong result. So this is what we saw. Obviously, the businesses have a business because that is our demographic. You can move on. It's an even keel of businesses inside the track, right on the track, and a number speckled outside the track as well. Bit of a majority inside the track that got back to us. The nature of the businesses are retail, professional services, a bit of hospitality, and all of these businesses rely on public visibility, exposure, foot traffic, and parking, which we'll get to here. We have a very negative response to the effect of the Newcastle 500 on the local businesses, which I think we had one respondent who had a positive result. It was a bar, which is really, really good. But for the other 60 respondents, it was extremely negative result. The duration of the impact, this is one of the myths that a lot of the business owners wanted to speak about, because a lot of race goers would come to the race, have an amazing time for 3 days, and not entirely realise that the businesses are very affected for going up to 8 to 10 weeks was the majority of our result there. In the bump in, the setup, the race weekend, and even the bump out was going on 3 weeks as well. So this is a really huge impact overall for the locals. Accessibility of the businesses, yes, it was extremely affected. And as we move on, you can see that was mostly affected by lack of customer parking due to all those concrete barricades going up, and lack of foot traffic, I guess, because we found a lot of our customers were confused a lot of the time as to how to access our businesses and how to park close by and just get within proximity of these businesses. Same one-ish. So during the bump in, which we heard earlier from the businesses that they saw, that was around 8 weeks. For them, they had a significantly decreased business revenue. As this got, we can see there a lot of businesses were impacted, $0 to $5,000 for most of them, but it does bump up, and that these are several businesses that are going up $10 to $20 to $50 to $100,000 during that 8 weeks of losses, and this is in comparison with the same period last year. Over the weekend of the event, those decreases in revenue actually increased. So during the bump in, it was about 40% of our businesses were heavily affected. Then during the race weekend itself, 50% of those businesses were significantly decreased in revenue, which is really sad to see. Again, those amounts are shown like in a really high amount in the low, like $0 to $5,000, but they do bump up all the way. And this is per business. So if we can look at all of those businesses brought together, that really adds up. Even the bump out, a lot of businesses are still decreased during that 3 weeks period in their revenue. We can keep moving.
Similar graph.
Yep. At any point, did these businesses have to close? Many of them did. What did we find? Half of the businesses did have to close between 1 and 3 days. And then another, I think 23% had to close for 4 to 7 and plus 7 days. So these businesses have just been wiped out for over a week. Okay, a lot of the businesses are employing, thank you, quite a number of staff. So I think this just shows that not only the companies and the businesses and the business owners are greatly affected, but this does trickle on to their staff and the staff's income and the staff's livelihood as well.
Last ones. We can skip that one because that's to do with staffing.
Yep. Did any of these businesses attend the race recreationally? I think it's not surprising that I think we had 96% of those businesses did not attend. And I think that just shows the level of... Okay. The level of just disappointment and resentment towards that event, that they do not want to show support for that.
So negative overall.
Very negative overall. That's it. Thank you. I did just want to say, yeah, thank you so much. I hope you found that data illuminating. A friend in business said to me a few weeks back, if some of us suffer, we all suffer. The businesses are an ecosystem that greatly rely on one another. And we also rely on our community, our local and our state governments for support. So I hope you can hear the voice of the businesses, and they are saying to move the race. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ash and Brendan, for that survey that you've presented there. Next, we've got Rowena Fung, fashion design, retail and manufacturing from the well-known business in Newcastle, High Tea with Mrs. Wu, located on Wolf Street. Also chair of the independent business group Makers and Traders Newcastle, who's a group working together to connect small businesses with the vibrant creative community of the city, reading excerpts of stories told by businesses inside out and adjacent to the racetrack. So we'll hear from Rowena. Rowena? Thank you.
Good evening, honourable guests, friends and colleagues. As introduced, I'm Rowena Fung from High Tea with Mrs. Wu, and I've been in business for 22 years in Newcastle, and I'm also a resident. I'm here as a board member for Makers and Traders of Newcastle. We're currently representing 65 businesses located in the Newcastle CBD. I'm here to share excerpts from letters written by different business owners impacted by the event. These will provide you with the general concerns that a collective of businesses are experiencing with trade, staffing and accessibility. So basically I'm telling the story that Ash has, she's provided the data, but actually here's the stuff from the people. So I'm going to start with Scotty's at 36 Scott Street, a venue with a wonderful history that dates back to the 1950s. So for 17 years now, Jenny Roberts is the owner of Scotty's. It's a family business that employs 20 staff. The supercars racetrack is on the front door of Scotty's, and here's what she wrote to the State Minister. I'm situated at T8 on the racetrack, which is within the resident zone. In 2017, the supercars paid me compensation as they acknowledged that my business was unable to operate due to no public being able to access our premises. I have asked continuously for the same recognition to be granted this year, but have been met each time with a directive to the Motorsports Event Act. This omits supercars from having to pay compensation for loss of business within the event zone. As I fall in the resident zone, I believe this omission for compensation does not apply to me. Supercars have requested that I lobby the locals to allow my business into the GA area to enable me to open. The request would be inflammatory, with strong opposition to encroach on the resident zone. Surely the Act protects businesses that are prevented from opening. I implore you to send a directive to supercars to honour their past compensation, acknowledging that my inability for my business to trade. I believe this to be a fair request, given that the race is profiting in my city. Through no fault of mine, I'm left with no income for 3 days and no hope for employing my team of 20 staff. Now, Bella Gauci and Gabby Graham from Honest Paper Stationery Store is new in the area, and they're located in the newly developed East End precinct. Their business is situated about 750 metres from the track. Gabby says, "We would like to draw your attention to the significant downturn in business that small businesses in the area have experienced as a result of the Supercars event. Our business, Honest Paper, experienced a decline in revenue of approximately 42% during the period of the event. This effect is not only limited to the race days, but also during the weeks prior, post-event, during the bump in and bump out period." Rosemary Dawson is the director of the Hunter Riders Centre. She holds the lease to the cottages of Nobby's Wibarganya Headland Lighthouse and operates a project called Lighthouse Arts from the site. And she says, "The Hunter Riders Centre was deeply affected by the closure of access to the lighthouse from the car park known as Nobby's Car Park East. We had to downgrade and then cancel our normally operating residencies where artists and riders attend the lighthouse to work. We also opened the site to the public on weekends only, and the site was required to be closed on the race weekend due to complete lack of access for our staff. As a result, there was no access for the public to this iconic tourist site. The Nobby's East car park was fully closed from the 20th of February. That meant we were forced to cancel all residencies, and they remained cancelled until the first week of April. Our staff lost regular employment over the race weekend, with the closures of the site during the week for residencies. A total of 100 employment hours have been lost. Income lost from the closure has been approximately $10,000. Make Space is a not-for-profit retail workshop located in the station, the old Newcastle station, which is situated inside the Supercars racing zone. Ali Sobel Reid is a member of Make Space, and she writes, "For weeks, our customers have complained of reduced parking opportunities and an inability to access the shop. We've seen a clear foot traffic drop since the setup began 9 weeks ago, and our March sales were down 60% from last year. That is quite significant." Steph Whitehead is a resident of Newcastle East and co-owner of Good Brother Espresso Cafe, located at 40 King Street, just 100 metres from the Supercars track. "We have run a successful cafe here since 2010. Every year of the race, we endure 10 plus weeks of significantly depleted trade during setup and pack down of supercars. During the event, we are forced to close as we're just outside the actual precinct, which means that no one from the event gives us patronage, and our usually loyal, regular customers are completely locked out of town." More? Okay. Sorry. "We did try to open the first year, but didn't serve a single coffee on a normally bustling morning. From our reports, this race has cost us a minimum of $80,000 in lost trade, which has been a huge strain on our business." One more. Graham Sincock is the co-owner of Moore Cafe Restaurant, located at 33 Hunter Street, about 150 metres from the Supercars racetrack. "In the weeks leading up to and after the Supercars weekend, the East End is an unpredictable mess of closed streets and limited parking." He says, "Our trade is noticeably lower in the week leading up to the Supercars and the week after. It is low enough that it eliminates any gains we might make on the actual Saturday and Sunday of the event." After 7 years of running more, our trade relies on regular customers, some who live locally and some who travel into the city. Many of those who would normally come into the East End have told us that they avoid the city for 4 or 5 weeks over the supercars period, as uncertainty in traffic, road conditions, and unappealing sight of the setup puts them off. We have yet to see any evidence of where the millions of dollars supercars is meant to bring to Newcastle is going. We struggle to see who among the residents and businesses of Newcastle benefit from this event. As you can see, there is a common thread running throughout these testimonies. The supercars event causes significant loss of trade, loss of access to the city, loss of employment for staff. Instead of enhancing business conditions, the event actually shuts the city down, which cancels out all the hard work and innovation that small businesses have been engaging in to bring people back into the CBD.
Thank you very much, Rowena. Next is Becky Kill from Newcastle Afoot. Wonderful Instagram page for people on the socials. It's a walking tours and local experiences business. Becky will present a perspective on tourism, heritage and local culture impacted by the Supercars event. Thank you very much.
Hello, can everyone hear me okay? Up the back, yes. Brendan was just asking me if I'm nervous normally public speaking. No, I have been on Sunrise really talking about the local businesses and how amazing they are quite a few times lately, and I don't get nervous, but I am right now because this is something really important. I run Newcastle Afoot walking tours and local experiences. That includes school excursions, and I am based at the station. Most of my tours, around 60 to 70% of them, are based within the racetrack area. I need to also acknowledge that I am an employee of the City of Newcastle. I work for the Visitor Information Centre and the museum, and I'm very proud of those jobs. And when I'm sharing this information, this is purely my perspective as a business owner and someone who provides tours about Newcastle, where I introduce people to business, culture and heritage. And also I've got a background in urban design and psychology, so I'm really interested in how city shapes people and people shape cities. I fell in love with Newcastle because of its urban renewal, which actually is a real draw internationally. Newcastle is known for Renew Newcastle and the Makers and Creators. Oh, I'm also a member of Makers and Traders and a person on the board of Makers and Traders. So I was really connected to that and drawn to that. I was also drawn to the fact that it's a city on the coast. It's got amazing heritage. A lot of people don't realise Newcastle is the second oldest city in Australia, and it has amazing Aboriginal and convict heritage. And I really love taking people through that area around the station, Customs House, the East End. My regular tour that I've been running for 6 years goes straight through the track area. As far as my business observations and my worry for the future, I'm not against supercars as a business. I have been to supercars before. I've seen how you can get a thrill from that. However, just observations, and I've actually given it a go, trying to run tours, trying to connect with visitors as part of supercars, as have all operators. And I have to say, I haven't spoken to a tour operator who has said they have had any positive experience or growth or business growth from supercars. The impact on my business so far, my sales have reduced significantly. I've never had a sale in the week of supercars for the last several years. Reduced access to public amenity, to historic and scenic locations. People come here and not like, we're talking about that 10-week period. I have 10 weeks where I'm trying to take people through a really beautiful site, and that is significantly impacted as far as the beauty, the Accessibility, yes, you can technically find a gap in fencing, but that is really stressful for a lot of people, especially elderly people or people with a disability. I personally, for my business, I am really, really concerned, having observed the last few years trying to give it a go. I'm really concerned that I might lose my biggest contract for summer, which is a luxury tour operator. I provide tours for a large amount of people, around 40 per tour, in which they need access to the beach and the city. Those two things can't be separated, and they may lose. Newcastle may lose these luxury regular tours that happen all summer season. They're 80% of my business in that period, because there's all the fencing and the walls and the lack of access. As far as impact, there's also I want to get my key points across. The other thing is, I guess, just as far as impact, there's impact on the businesses. Everything that everyone's been saying, that's not a lie. And my business is about sharing that. And it's not just the weekend, it's the construction doesn't balance things out. And I think that we are at significant risk of losing and going backward in the East End, as far as I think these businesses may leave if Supercars does come back, and because it's really hard to lose that amount of business. I would love more events, absolutely, but I'm really concerned for our partners and how that will work. Last two sentences, if we do have a future event, and looking into the future as a tour operator and as a member of Makers and Traders and all of those things, I hope that future events follow the destination management plan of the City of Newcastle in real detail. It's a great document that is a really great asset, and I think it's really important we follow that, including the assessment of criteria for new projects. So whether this does meet the assessment of criteria in the plan. Also, I want to note that the plan encourages new events, but that we need to ensure the protection and improvement of existing assets and accessibility. So absolutely, let's have events. Let's have supercars, but just not, we just need to assess everything. So let's do a proper assessment, make sure it meets everything, and review the market research, which says some other things. I won't get into too much detail, but just look at the previous market research on why people visit. Actually, you know what? I'm going to really quickly pull it out because it's right here. Market research from the plan shows that visitors think the most unique competitive advantage is a combination of the following products and attributes: proximity to the city centre to surf beaches, strengths of art and heritage product in coastal settings, nighttime economy, which is potentially going to get really impacted, compactness and walkability of Newcastle, and mixing with the laid-back, friendly approach of locals, which is what I love. People love saying hi. Let's keep that going. Let's have positive events for sure.
Thanks very much, Becky. Next up, we've got Kath Fielden from Kath Fielden Associates Family Law. And Kath's going to present from a services perspective.
Hi there, I'm a lawyer, don't hold that against me. I'm a family lawyer and I'm mainly an independent children's lawyer. So what that means is, in the worst of cases, I represent kids and I represent the children. My job is to bring what's in the best interests of the children to the court and to gather that evidence together. From my office was originally at 17 Bolton Street and then at 19 Bolton Street for the supercars. I've moved, I've left town. Myself and my 5 employees have left the CBD. We've moved to Adamstown. And we've done that. We're paying similar rent to the rent that we were paying in town. It's not because of cheaper rent, but we've done it mainly because of supercars. The disruption to my business has been profound. We've had 5 years of 8 weeks of disruptions that has made it impossible to run my business. That's 40 weeks my business has been offline because the internet gets disrupted by it. We've had parking issues. We've had access issues for disabled clients and young people and children. We've had problems with in terms of the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi goes out for about a week before and it goes out for the week of and for a week after, and that's something to do with the broadcast stations that they set up to broadcast the stream. People who are in Newcastle East, their Wi-Fi gets disrupted for that time. I have an office that runs on Wi-Fi. If we print something, it goes into the Wi-Fi to get printed, so I haven't been able to print. I can't print. Now, for a lawyer, that's kind of hard. The other thing is, for 5 years, I paid for a private parking space for myself and my 2 secretaries in Athcourt Lane. We couldn't access that for about 8 weeks each year because of supercars. One of the problems that we've always had is that those trucks that bring in the big concrete barriers, they can fit, I think it's 8, maybe they've got 10, some of them, concrete barriers. Each truck takes 2 hours to come in, unload, and then get out. So if you're putting all of those thousands of barriers around town, that just jams the city up. My favourite comedy act was when the NBN was being laid out. There was some Hunter Waterworks, there was a builder with a crane, and there were the supercars, concrete things, and they put everyone into an infinite loop. There was no traffic management plan, and what it meant was everyone who got stuck in that loop couldn't get out. There was nowhere for them to get out. That went on for 2 hours until someone punched one of the workers, and a police officer who was trying to get to work actually got out of his car and he started traffic managing and he got approval to do that. But that's the kind of impact that happens every single time with supercars. The other thing is the rubbish. Coming back into the office after the weekend, there's always someone's used our doorway as a urinal and they just, piss in the door in the cracks and they think it's really funny. There's always rubbish. That's really awful. The noise is really bad. The other thing is I have to get my office professionally cleaned after every supercars. I'm in Bolton Street, so we would get 1 pass, and the first year I said, okay, so that's my pass that I let my staff and my clients in or out. Oh no, we suggest that you tell your staff, you pay your staff to have annual leave for the week before supercars and the week after. Or maybe you could buy them some tickets to the events and then they could come and go. But I had 1 pass to let myself in, to let children in that I was interviewing and meeting, and once. But in terms of the court, up the road in Bolton Street, the family court, over 5 years I've had something like 7 matters where they've been waiting almost 2 years to have their day in court and to have their trial resolved, and it's been cancelled. And then they've had to wait till December or January or February. I've got a case where they've been cancelled twice because of supercars. And that impacts families. The other thing is access for clients who are victims of family violence. When you've got the supercars and all the roads off, we normally say, go and park down at the foreshore, don't park in the car station opposite the road because that people will be watching that, and if you've got someone who's emotional, they might wait for you by the car. So we usually get people to park down the road or up near King Edward Park. Can't do that. There's nowhere to drop the clients off who've got family violence issues, so we can't do a safety plan, we can't do it properly, and that's for about a week before and a week after the supercars event. So for me, it just became down to service, accessibility and money. My 5 staff, we probably bought lunch in town, all of us at least once a week. I bought coffees every single day in town. My staff all bought coffees every single day in town. I added up recently and I had a heart attack about how much money I've spent on coffee in 5 years. I'm not spending it there now, I'm spending it in Adamstown, so another business is benefiting. But the coffee shop owners tell me that it's really has destroyed them and it's really hurt them and it hurts them long term. So do all the cafes, and so many cafes have just disappeared. And it's that 8 weeks of disruption, can't get their delivery vans in, can't park, can't get their clients in, and it's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kath. Our next speaker is Michael Bateman. Michael is a long-term resident of Newcastle East and a barrister, and with a business near the corner of Watt and Church Street. He'll present a resident's perspective. Thank you very much, Michael.
Good evening. I'm a blood-sucking lawyer, like as a resident. I've been a resident since 1978, and I have a business just outside the track in Church Street, which has been going since 1985 in various ways. So I'm well placed to comment upon experiences as both. Now, I've got to go closer to the microphone. Is that better? Thanks. Good. Am I audible? Good. The problem with supercars is that it's like being in Paris in 1940 when the Nazis jackbooted in. And the biggest problem, or the bigger problem, is that a Quisling council supported the jackbooting Nazis. We've had the Nazis now for 4 series, from 2017, 2018-19 and 2023, and they want to come back for another 5 years. I've got a big question. Why? Where's the money going, as somebody else said? Who's making all this money? Where are the millions rolling into Newcastle? They're not coming into the East End, that's for sure. I think they're going up the highway to Southport. Can I tell you that somebody asked me, and this is wonderful because people outside the track, outside the East End, are becoming alert about just what's happening to their city. And somebody asked me, what's it really like? Well, I can tell you what it's really like. It's really like renting a share house with a truculent landlady who comes in one day and tells you, look, I'm inviting 400 friends in to have a 3-day party in your kitchen. And I've got a DJ called Super Whacker with a supersonic sound system who's going to set it up in the kitchen, and there'll be equipment in the hallways. So if you want to attend the big night with 400 of my special friends, you'll have to buy a ticket. And by the way, when they leave, you'll have to pay for cleaning up. And also, it'll be such a great success. I want to have it for the next 5 years. So it's my party and you'll pay if I want to. The mess that's left by our visitors from Southport, that's where they all come from, I can show you. These are, and there was a picture of them, these are ties that tie up plastic fences. Now, for some reason, there's black plastic of 2 metres high with fences everywhere. These people have a fence fetish, I think. But they tie them up with these plastic things, and when they're finished, they cut the plastic ties and drop them into the grass. That's it. In 2019, NERG wrote to our beloved council and said, look, there's all these ties dropped everywhere. What are you going to do about it? No response. So NERG, and I won't name names because there may be police nearby, NERG got a ute full of these things from the park, and being the lobbyists we are, we had them dropped in the lobby of the council chambers. There's another ute being filled this year. The other show and tell I've got is something I didn't realise, that there's something called globular warming. Globular warming is this stuff. This is rubber, melted rubber. And where's this? On 2.6 kilometres of track. Look at this. I was going to say it's the size of a cricket ball, but that probably exceeds a cricket ball. So I picked these up just in a 30-metre walk along the 2.6 track, and I easily scraped them off. The size of these things is particulate. It goes up to cricket ball. And where's it all going? If it's dislodged by cars or rain, guess where it goes? Into the ocean. So for those people that voted in supercars and voted in the outrageous New South Wales Act of the Motor Events Act, which takes away all your rights for compensation. There's a heading, no compensation for economic loss. Our MPs, with great respect, have passed that legislation. Why? Why are they doing such great favours for a private corporation taking profit away from our city? My suggestion is they just bump off and don't come back. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Michael. I do love a prop, and I couldn't help but think that this is supercars particulate. Don't be afraid of it. Ladies and gentlemen, you've all seen it before. Thanks very much, Michael. Not only are baristas being affected in Newcastle, but the lives of barristers are also being impacted. Next speaker is Alex Bathurst, who will provide a summary of sound data collected by RCA, contracted by residents. He's a retired scientist and engineer with a PhD in geophysics, and he's
not a lawyer.
And not a lawyer. Not yet. There's still time.
Oh, okay.
So thanks very much, Alex.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, sorry, I'll just try and get this so it just goes bigger. Not sure how I do that. Sorry, that's on notes. I need slides. No, slideshow, thank you. From beginning, how's that? That's okay. All right, and I've got 20 minutes, I was told. And I'm a very slow speaker. All right, this is, sorry, I need to look at this as I'm going. Thank you. Sorry, can you hear me now? Yeah? Okay. Everyone knows the track probably, but just so you know something about the track, you can see the outline. That's the, I hate to call it the track, it's actually track inverted commas. It's actually our city and suburban streets. About 58% of that track is lined by houses and businesses where people live, work and play. And the green areas to the north, up the top, are taken over by I refuse to use their name, the event promoter. And that is just totally occupied. It's full of concrete barriers, fences, their equipment and all the paraphernalia they need to run the event, I guess. But it's just taken over and inaccessible to everybody else. So, I'm going to break away a little bit here. I'm going to take longer than 5 minutes though. So George decides to go to the supercars race, and he's decided to take his new girlfriend along, and they turn up to the side of Watt Street, and there are people there, and they look around and they can see the people there, and they're listening to the traffic, the noise going past, and it's really, really powerful. It's very hard to replicate that by anything I'm going to show you here. I'm going to show you data, but it doesn't tell you how bloody noisy it is. It's visceral. And there's a certain attraction to that because people probably like the excitement, the fear. They look for crashes and all that sort of stuff. But George has taken Mandy, his new girlfriend, to the race, and they're having a chat about why they're here and what they're doing. So they've got two choices in regard to noise, and this is the only two choices they have. They're not allowed to allow any noise more than 120 decibels. Now that's quite loud in and of itself. If you listen to stereo at home, play Led Zeppelin really loud, it'll be pretty high. Close to that, but not over it too much. Or you could have no more than 140 decibels, which is immediate damage to your hearing if it occurs, or anywhere near that actually. and also an average level of 85 decibels, which if you go to a picture theatre, a cinema, they will never let it go higher than 85 decibels. It's really noisy, really heavy action film. So you've got to think about that. You've turned up there. What would you choose? Okay, so I'll leave you that with you. This is just how our data has been collected by a very reputable RCA acoustic consultants, and they've been with us all the way through. And this is just showing I don't know whether it's Aqua, is showing the peak levels, the really high, sharp levels where if it goes bang like that, like a gunshot right in your ear, you've got damaged hearing, no doubt about it. The red bits are the average levels. So this is over a whole day, 9 hours essentially of racing. And you can see that there's very consistent levels. It's continuous over and flat over long periods of time, particularly on the right-hand side where you can see the race. These are the dry numbers, but essentially this is two sites that we measured this year around at Nobbies Road and Watt Street. And essentially you'll see in the first table the there's 3 days there. We monitored over 3 days. You can see that Nobbies Road is about 85 or 86 decibels. That was inside a bedroom with a window down. The next row is at Watt Street on a balcony that it was exposed to the outside. That's about 100 decibels. That's the average over the whole 8 hours. So there's times when it's more and times when it's less. But it's over the 85 decibels, which is a workplace level that is used for workers. Now, Mandy and George, they're not workers. I'm taking more time. I'm notorious for this. And so that they've got to basically try and deal with this. They don't know what to do. The same sort of data applies at Watt Street. It's a lot higher. The peak levels are much higher, 130, 133 decibels. That's pretty nasty. It's sore to your ears. Anything over 120 is sore to your ears. So when Mandy comes to the racetrack, she said, what the... Says more than that. Puts a hand to her head to protect her ears. It's a human instinct when it's like that level of sound. And it's really, really bad news. We also had the benefit of John Davies and Helen at the Carlton, and John has been so diligent in regard to getting data at the Carlton. He shares that freely with NERG and all of you by me presenting it here. But you can see here, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2023, the peak levels you can see around about 132 up to 138. Often the instruments can't read any further than that, 140, they don't go over. So it really is outrageous, absolutely outrageous, these levels that are allowed to occur. And what I didn't point out on the map of the racetrack, people are right along, especially the punters that can't pay to be in the grandstands, right beside the track, right beside it. I stood, headphones in, all the rest of it, 2 metres away, a bit less than that actually, and that's where the racing cars were. You should not be there. No one should be there. Children should not be there. And what I'm saying is the average and the peak levels exceed. Now, what I'm saying here is New South Wales Health. Now, I had a look. It's funny what you do. I've been chasing this. This time around, went to New South Wales Health, had a look at noise levels. First time I've seen it on their site, different to what they told us a few years ago. And this is what they talk about, very simply. 60 decibels is irritating, 80 decibels, cars close, driving down, probably a little bit of a health risk already. Louder sounds, 90 or 120 decibels, these are peak levels, could be injurious. This is on the webpage that New South Wales Health is saying. I'm flabbergasted. Can be injurious to human health. You saw already the data I provide you. It's way over that. It's hugely over that. Sounds above this threshold, such as a rivet gun or 130 decibels, is highly injurious, and you can lose your hearing just like that. So, who's at risk? Everyone. That's my summary. What do you do to protect yourself? Earplugs, earmuffs, stay indoors with perfect seals. The owners of the houses, the people of the buildings, the businesses had to protect themselves, their customers, their workers if they were going to operate. It's just crazy stuff, absolutely crazy stuff. And the only other way to get out of it is to remove yourself. And I spoke to a couple of people already. Yeah, that's what I do every time. Every time it's on, I piss off out of here. So who can you complain to? You're not a worker, so you're not subject to the Workplace and Health Act. Julie and Alice is here, where we went and visited Safe Work New South Wales in Newcastle, talked to them about that. They know all this is going on, but we are in their jurisdiction, so it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. We're so far over the limits, any normal business will not allow those sorts of levels to occur for workers in their place of business. It's illegal. And we're getting this for the duration of the race. And there are people, children, people that don't know. Some people wear it, very few. We've done lots of surveys in the past. Hardly anyone does any hearing protection, no earplugs, no earmuffs, and they just don't know what's happening. I'm almost there, Joan, sorry. Motorsports Event Act, it's a marvellous piece of legislation. Paul just mentioned it. It's a wonderful piece of legislation. It's so set up to satisfy what motorsport likes to do, with all due respect to people that love motorsport. It doesn't sideline the Work Health and Safety Act, doesn't sideline the Heritage Act. It does sideline a number of acts which you might think, managing roads and all that. But there's no protection. There's no protection under the law in the way that it's set up for patrons, residents, businesses and customers. And the event promoter, funnily enough, and their employees, and actually public servants as well, people doing work on behalf of the authorities, they're also protected from liability, except for ultimately if you kill somebody or really do some damage to somebody. But they've got it all their way. The only thing we can do, and that's what Mandy wanted to do, and that's what George said, no, I love this. She said, bugger off, I'm not staying with you anymore, I'm moving the race.
Thanks very much for that, Alex. Our next speaker is Kevin Jackson. Kevin's going to talk about CO2 emissions and the Newcastle 500. He's got experience in global senior energy and carbon management operations, managing strategy for some of the large set portfolios with budgets in excess of $1 billion. So he's going to let us know about the CO2 emissions. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Hello everybody, how you doing? So I only met everybody last week, and if I'd have known there's been so many people, I would have done some nicer slides. Thank you.
How's that?
That's grand. Oops. Oops. Is everybody okay to see it? See that? Yep. All right, guys, so to cut it short, I'm a resident living inside the track, also an energy management and building operations professional, 17 years working globally with all of this type of stuff with CO2 emissions, energy and whatnot. So living inside the track this year, I was flabbergasted to see all of the infrastructure that was in play to bring this race into the town. And I started looking and digging to try and find out, what are the emissions of all of this? What am I breathing in? What's my son breathing in? And on top of that, all of the businesses that are losing business, custom, the noise that Alex just mentioned, thank you for that, because that's quite prevalent to my son as well. And I decided to just look a little bit more into it and look for data on these emissions and whatnot. And I started to find that I couldn't find anything. It looked like a little bit of black magic there online. I couldn't find nothing on the council website, couldn't find nothing with Repco supercars and so on. So again, just a quick overview. These cars, obviously, and the infrastructure emit a lot of harmful emissions into your lungs and whatnot. So it's very important that we understand what they are. So very quickly, you've got just in the last 70 years, how carbon emissions and toxic fumes and whatnot have accelerated with the Industrial Revolution and how that's bad for us. And then at the bottom, quite quickly, we've got emissions that organisations conduct themselves with and measure, so scope 1, 2 and 3. So what's very important here is that Newcastle City Council, when the race is on, it's a scope 3 emission, it's a community emission, and it's something that you really should have disclosed to yourselves, because the council have gone and pigeonholed themselves into committing to international frameworks and whatnot. So it's quite a surprise that we don't see that. But also the Scope 1 emissions from when they're setting up and taking down all of the infrastructure. So if I'm wrong, and this does exist, I'd love to see it, but in my research, I've not found anything. Oh, sorry?
We're Australians.
All right.
It's a mono-directional mic, so you have to speak right into it.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, everybody.
Hang on.
Yep.
Get your lips on it
Yep.
and project.
Okay. Yep. So, as I was saying on the previous slide, there's an obligation from the council and the supercars to disclose the harmful toxins and carbon emissions that they're putting in to the Newcastle East area, and I can't find it anywhere. I met some of the people here tonight last week following the event, and they provided me with consultants' reports from Ernst & Young and so on, companies that I've worked with in the past, and I looked at the consultation. I looked at it backwards, forwards, went back and forth, couldn't see anything relating to this very important problem that we have. So I went onto the Newcastle City Council website, and I see that they're committed to global framework and initiatives like the UN SDGs, the Paris Agreement and Australian disclosure reports. And the more I looked into it, I couldn't find anything on this event, which is actually greenwashing, because it's a Scope 3 emission that they need to be reporting on and telling the people who are affected by it. So couldn't find anything there, but I could find some goals that they set and that they have committed with a 2019 baseline to 2025 for reduction in citywide emissions. They're going to try and drag businesses into this as well, which if you've got businesses in Newcastle, they will be asking you to contribute. However, they're not disclosing what they want. You know, they're telling you that we do this, we do that, but in reality, and I've seen this a lot in my career, it's greenwashing, and it needs to be called out. So started to do 2 parts of an analysis in the past week. Part 1, which was from the actual races, the kilometres, the distances, the fuels in these vehicles. And what we found is, using data from the Repco Supercars website themselves, so it's referenced as per their information, we found that there's, just for the 3 days alone from the fuel, there's 28,000 kilograms of CO2 emitted from the vehicles alone. That is 7.7 tons of carbon. So to put that into a comparison, an organisation that I own, an energy management, nothing to do with this, but one of our clients, which is a food production manufacturing plant, that's 10 years worth of their electricity emissions. So I'm now thinking, oh shit, I need to really understand more of this. So we started to look into it a bit more, and we found that the main problem and the main emissions are going to be from the 4-week setup and the 4-week knockdown. So it's a black art, though. I can't find any information on it, and I know it's not in the Newcastle City Council's baseline. I know they're not reporting on it. So it's a bit naughty, really, that they're saying one thing on the website, but then in reality, this event that is poisonous doesn't get reported on. So going into part 2 analysis, I'm starting this week, and I hope if people have information, you can come forward and support with this. But effectively, I expect it to be potentially 1,000% more than the 3-day race event. And I've just been conservative here, saying 400 to 600%. But if that is the case, then you're going to find that it's the equivalent of having 30 domestic flights in the Newcastle East area within the racetrack, in the 5 SA areas, which is pretty bad for you, and you don't want that, because you might, in the long run, die from that problem. So basically, my slides would have been nicer if I knew there was a big crowd here tonight and I wasn't just meeting a few people. But next steps that I'm going to be supporting with and putting forward to key stakeholders involved with this, including the council and so on, is that I'm going to calculate part 2 and put that on the table into an artifact so we can review it. I want to understand the pollution so I can compare it to a congested city such as London, where I used to live for a long time, so that we can see per square metre, per square mile, how we're affected compared to these cities where deaths are recorded, there's contribution to poor health. And then I think we need to have a bit of a sit down with the CEO of the council and ask him why he's not disclosing this information. But we'll do that for him. And then, So yeah, that was next steps. But again, I didn't know I was presenting to a lot of people tonight. But yeah, that's me. And by the way, there's the information if you want to. Anybody wants it for the race. Thank you. Is there any questions?
Where can people get that information?
Oh, I can share it and I can reference it. Yeah.
You can share it? How do they get in touch with you?
Oh, the people here tonight. I don't know how many people, but
Okay.
yeah, all right.
Thanks very much, Kevin. You certainly had everyone's attention when you said, ooh, you could die from it. We heard a lot there about greenwashing. I was just waiting for the bit about psyops and black ops running late at night up in the East End. Next to the speaker, I'd also like to point out that Tim, who has come along tonight, will not be speaking tonight. He has come along tonight, but he does have to go. I'd like to invite now to the microphone Christine Everingham. Christine is a long-term member of NERG and a co-author of the book Wrong Track, What Drove Supercars to Newcastle. And you can remember a fantastic launch that book had a few years ago, and it was a great pleasure to be there at the emceeing it there and then go home and go through that book. And it's such a forensic layout of the history and what's going on. It's a great a great commendation to Christine and for the tireless work that she's done for NERG.
There we go.
You're right.
Yeah, I'm right now. I'm really tired. I think back when we first heard that supercars were coming to Newcastle in 2017, and we knew nothing. We knew nothing. And all we were told was a whole lot of hype. And over the next 6 years I've been researching this event. And we have had to put in, NERG has put in over 30, nearly 40 freedom of information requests to find out what's going on. We know more than Council knows. We know more than Destination New South Wales know. We know what's going on, but we're still being accused of spreading misinformation. So look, I'm really quite exhausted. I'm a great-grandmother now, and I just want them to go. All I'm doing tonight, I'm really very keen for as many of you as possible to have your say. All I'm going to do tonight is put the motion that I want us to pass tonight, and then I'm going to speak to that motion and then let you people have a say. And if you want to know something, hey, I'm the local expert on supercars in Newcastle. Never heard of them 4 years ago, but anyway, here we are. All right, so this is the motion up there on the overhead here. We call on the New South Wales Government and the City of Newcastle Council to cease hosting the Newcastle 500 through the residential streets and parklands of Newcastle East. I was going to go into that, but I think that we've actually heard enough tonight to know that it's what goes on in these supercars events, not just the 3 days, the bump-in period, the bump-out period. We know that this isn't just a hiccup that can be fixed. We get this after every event. We get the Lord Mayor saying, a few hiccups, we can do better, next year we'll make it a lot better and it'll all be sorted. Well, no, it won't. And this is why we have to speak out really strongly about this. You cannot possibly hope to construct a motor racing circuit through heritage streets and public parkland in 5 weeks and then pull it down in 3 weeks on a peninsula where the main road's closed and all the other roads get closed here and there for
clearways so they can bring their barricades in. You can't hope to construct a motor racing circuit in Newcastle East and expect that you can make it better. It's just a few hiccups. It's always going to be this disruptive. We cannot let them get away with saying that it'll be better next time. It won't. What I want to do now is introduce the second point, because what I've become really good at is learning about how they try and justify the event. We know all of these impacts, but so far as council's concerned, there's just winners and losers, a diverse lot of people, some win, some lose. They don't give us any justification for all of the losses that we've heard about tonight. For people, for the public being excluded from their public parks and their beaches for nearly 2 months. What's the justification? All that we've got so far are economic impact reports. Now, I'm actually going to act the teacher here and just give you a very quick lesson on what these economic impacts are supposed to do and what the ones that we've got actually do. So you'll have to bear with school mum here for a minute. Did I do it? Yes. All right. Okay, now this is the lesson. An economic impact report, a robust economic impact report, can only be calculated by assessing the additionality of the expenditure resulting from the event. This is done by subtracting factors such as dead weight, displacement, and leakages. Now, these are the international standards for an economic impact report. What have we been given in both of the economic impact reports we've had? Well, additionality, they calculate additionality by the promoter's own data, attendance data. So Supercars hands over the tickets issued, now that's important, it's not people through the gate, it's the tickets they hand out before people even come, so that they're counted whether people come or not. So nobody really knows how many people actually come through the gate. That's very important when you consider, and we know this from all of our freedom of information, we know that only 30% of tickets are bought through Ticketek that are paid. The rest, 70%, between 60 and 70%, are handed out free by Supercars to various categories of people. And who knows if they come? We don't know. They may well have visitors in Queensland or Victoria or Hobart or somewhere. They hand them out to visitors, guests, friends of friends, and they're counted whether they come or not. So what we tried to get, and we can thank Charlotte McCabe if she's here, what a brave councillor she is. And I'd also like to thank the two Liberal councils who standed up and stood there and took the onslaught that they got from the Lord Mayor and the CEO. So thank you too. And I'd also like to thank Sage Swinton from the Newcastle Herald, because she reported it in the Newcastle Herald. And they did a really good job of reporting it. It was even in the editorial. And of course the editorial was right. He said, look, if you go to a football match, you go through a turnstile. We know how many come. When they come to this event, they don't go through a turnstile. We just have to rely on the promoter telling us how many tickets they issued. Now, the thing is, which I've learnt over the last 12 months, they actually do know themselves how many come, because we're all scanned as we come through the gate. We're scanned as we come through the gate. So they know how many are actually here. Well, they need to know because they've got their own catering to look after. So everybody, that Supercars knows how many are scanned. You won't get those numbers. You'll only get the tickets that are issued. And that was the point Charlotte was trying to make. We don't want, they ended up passing a motion whereby Supercars is just going to give us data we already know. It's not good enough. We actually want to know, if it all depends on the number of visitors and people who come to the event, we need to know how many they are. So thanks to Newcastle Herald for standing up to us. All right, so that's additionality. We don't really know. Okay. Now, let's have a look at what's supposed to be subtracted. Displacement is the big one. Displacement is what we've heard here tonight. Displacement is the volume of normal activity displaced by an event. Now, any other major event, it's not such a big deal. And that's how come Destination New South Wales can get away with it. Because most major events are held in purpose-built stadiums. So they know how many come in, and you're not displacing the whole town in the meantime. But this event, the 9 weeks bump in and out, there's incredible displacement of the normal activity that happens in that area. They lose clientele. People don't come back. So displacement is a huge issue. But has anyone tried to survey all the businesses? No, we've had absolutely no quantitative data on the impact on our own businesses, which needs to be subtracted. And the other thing is leakages. Now, just have a look what leakage is. It'll sound very familiar. Event-related activity that results in money being expatriated from the defined host economy. For example, expenditure by visitors made with non-local vendors. There you are. So what actually happens is an incredible amount of leakage. All the visitors who come are funnelled into the compound. Where do they spend their money? On the city that Supercars has brought in themselves. Gemma caterers are from Queensland, caterers from Sydney, very few local vendors. They've dropped right back in the events that we've had, because even if they do make a bit of a profit inside the circuit, Supercars takes 40% of their overheads or 27% of their profits. So this is leakage. Leakage is also when you think about where the money is going. And we know, only anecdotally of course, that the big hotels and the accommodation places, not all of them, but most of the accommodation places make money because they can jack up their prices for those 3 days. But if it's an international hotel chain, does that money actually stay inside Newcastle? No, unlikely. All right, so what we're asking you to decide tonight is to pass... let me go back. Back to the motion there. Whoops. What we want our council and the state government to do is to instigate a thorough and independent performance audit, which is a cost-benefit analysis, to be conducted by the Auditor General, the New South Wales Auditor General, and it's to be undertaken on the Newcastle 500 event. It should include the cost-benefit analysis of local businesses and residents, as well as the costs to the New South Wales Government and to us ratepayers. Now, they did do that. They did a performance audit in Canberra when the event was there. What happened when they did the performance audit? Canberra got rid of it because the costs outweighed the benefits. And they didn't even consider, they didn't have the local businesses impacted the same as we do. They did another one at Homebush. They got to have a performance audit, and again, they found that the costs outweighed any benefits. Unfortunately, it didn't stop the New South Wales government, though, from actually, when the Liberal government finally got in, they extended that event there for another 5 years as well. After 3 years, though, the numbers were dropping so low it became obvious to everybody, and even supercars agreed they really needed to move on. But they had to give them a new contract, didn't they? Because they broke the old one. So they'd promised them a regional city. Gosford was the winner. When the administrator moved in and took over, Gosford were going to have it. Oh yes, just like us, all the hype and so on. Yes, we'll have the event. Great. When the administrator moved in, he said, "Where's all the paperwork?" There wasn't any. The same thing that happened here. They came up here to Newcastle in desperation and put it in the most unlikely place you could possibly imagine, in a heritage area, 3 metres from people's homes, 50% of the track lined with homes. It was just astonishing that they were able to do that, but they were desperate. They needed a regional city, and so we got landed with it. All right, so the second thing we're asking for in this motion is we want a performance audit. The third thing is really, why aren't our political representatives actually considering a better deal for us? Why have they poured millions, and I think it was something like 50 million into Homebush, and goodness knows how much was poured into Newcastle? Why wasn't that all put into a purpose-built, regional, purpose-built track? A proper circuit, which would be open all year round, not just for 3 days. Imagine all those millions for a race that goes for 3 days. We could have had a permanent, purpose-built track. I'm getting tired, sorry. The other thing about the purpose-built tracks is Joan and I, our timekeeper here, who's, I noticed you're not dogging me out, Joan, thank you. Joan and I were actually up in Darwin when supercars were in Darwin. It was wonderful. We didn't even know they were there. They were about 15 kilometres or so. They were in a place called Hidden Valley. And what a fantastic place. Out of town, camping growing up around car businesses, small businesses, all growing up around where the permanent circuit is. The whole place prospering because they've got a permanent purpose-built track. And then they come into the city. They come into the city and spend their money and say, what a great city this is. Why haven't we got something like that? What we've heard tonight is all of these wonderful young people, so full of enthusiasm and so eager to show off the best of what Newcastle can offer. What chance have they got with what we're doing to them? If we had a purpose-built track, we could have all the music and the cultural events and everything else going on here, and we could have the car racing somewhere where they can have it all year round. Perfect. So I'm going to leave it there because I really want Paul and have we got a microphone to go around the hall? Yep. So now's the time for any of you to have your say, and if you've got any questions, remember we've got some experts here and we'll try and answer them for you. Then I'll come back and we'll have the vote.
Thanks very much, Christine, and thanks for your ongoing commitment to this. It's been a long struggle, and no wonder you're tired, and congratulations on being a great grandma too. Well done. Karen's going to take a microphone around, and we're going to ask that you address questions to one of the panel members that has come along tonight. Karen will bring the microphone to you. If you raise your hands, we've already got quite a few hands popping up around the place. I will ask people be concise with their question rather than make long-winded statements. I will cut you off. So can we move straight to a question rather than a long preamble? That gentleman over there had his hand up before Christine even got to a seat. I've got someone down there, someone down there. I've got 4 for a start. That'll do for a start. Oh, you want the motion moved now?
There we go.
Christine? We had a request that the motion be moved now. Are you comfortable with that? Well, we'll soon find out, Christine.
All right, let's move it. You can move it, Paul.
Well, no, I think it's correct that you move the motion, Christine.
All right, well, people might be getting a bit tired too because we've got standing room only. So, all those in favour of the motion say aye. Aye. Is there anyone against? No. Unanimous.
Thank you very much. Gentleman over here. Here.
I just wanted a comment from Grant because he's a secretary.
Sorry.
No, that guy did ask first.
Okay.
Hi. The only reason I didn't agree is because I don't think that cost-benefit analysis is wide enough. It doesn't mention the health impacts. We've talked a lot tonight about businesses and money and whether the money's coming in or it's going out. Benzene is a major component of the fuel that the cars burn. Benzene is a known carcinogen. It causes leukemia. There is strong data. The US has called it a human carcinogen. The WHO causes it a carcinogen for humans. We're literally killing ourselves with this. How many cases of leukemia do we want because of a car race? Add on to that the effects on asthma. My expertise is in maternal health and early childhood development. Exhaust pollution is known to cause fetal growth restriction. Fetal growth restriction is a major cause of stillbirth. How many cases of stillbirth do we want? If you restrict the growth of the baby inside the uterus, which vehicle emissions do, that affects the child for the whole of its life. And that's not included in this motion. I'm concerned we're underestimating the health impacts.
Yeah, the motion's been put and carried, but we will be hopefully making a delegation in Sydney. Hopefully we'll get to see the Minister, and we will certainly we want to talk about environmental and health issues as well, and also issues to do with sound. So thank you.
Thank you. And next, over there, thank you.
I would just like to add, no, it's not going. Am I going now? Yep, straight on it. My name's Narelle Blick, President of Nobby Surf Club and a Newcastle resident. I'd just like to add to the impact of the supercars onto a surf club and the community, the nippers and that are involved. So everyone says like 3 days. We have 10 weeks of lockout of our car park. We can't use the surf club. We struggled to use the access to our beach. That's 200 nippers that are displaced every Sunday. We lose a membership. That was proven on the first year of the supercars to the second year. The members say they will not come back, like our juniors won't return. And again, that's like the vital water safety, teaching the youth, our children, all the way through surf clubs. We're locked out of our boat sheds. We have to move our boats off the premises to be able to use them. Our boats have to be out 3 weeks before the supercars, so we have to find storage for the boats, the IRBs. We're an emergency service. We're locked out with fences. We have to be able to go there, undo gates, bike chains, however they got the fences up, and it's just an argument the whole time to be able to access the emergency services that we need to be able to put down onto the beach. So that's just another impact.
Thanks, Sarah. There's a gentleman over here in a white shirt.
Yes, thanks very much. My name is Grant Little. I just wanted to speak about the third point in the motion and to let everybody know that that purpose-built track is well and truly underway. It's been a long project. The track is 3.2 kilometres in length compared with the 2.6 here in Newcastle. It's an FIA Category 2 track, whereas the track here in Newcastle is supposedly a Category 3. It's non-compliant in a lot of areas. So the track that's being built is actually able to run events for cars up to just short of F1. So the track is 12 kilometres north of Raymond Terrace. It's on the land that was or is adjacent to the MG Car Club land. I was responsible for the design and documentation of the track. It's something that I started in 1969, showing my age a little. At the moment, the track is sealed, so the main work has been completed. Asphalt should be down, hopefully, by June or thereabouts, hopefully before winter. So I guess Port Stephens Council's got the jump on Newcastle in this respect. And the benefits, as were spoken about here earlier with Darwin, would occur here if perchance major events are held at Circuit Italia. It remains to be seen, of course, whether or not that circuit will be used for things like supercars. Yes, but there are probably very good reasons why it shouldn't be.
Thank you very much.
Anyway.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. A lady down here.
I'm going to attempt to stand up.
Hello, my name's Denise Lindis Trummell and I write constantly to the Herald, annoying the hell out of them. I would like to know why Tim Crackenthorpe isn't speaking tonight, and the reason for that is that I phoned his office 3 days before the election and asked him what side he was on. Is he for supercars or is he against it? Couldn't get an answer. Funny that, isn't it? And one of his people phoned me back and gave me a whole lot of spiel, but I didn't get any answers. So can anyone tell me?
Well, maybe Tim can.
Are you on our side?
Yeah, look, thanks very much for inviting me here tonight. It's been most insightful and I've gained a lot of new information, which is very useful. And I've been here to listen. I didn't come here to speak. I've been here to listen to my local community. The Minister will be sworn in this week in response to your question specifically, the Minister for Sport. I'm happy to put the issues raised tonight to the Minister. as your elected representative, I certainly will do that. So, that's what I'll do. And with regards to any sort of Auditor General
What's your
report,
position? What's your position? Are you on our side?
I'm your elected representative and I'll advocate on your behalf, as I do for all citizens within the electorate. With regards to a specific Auditor General inquiry,
We want someone to support us and to fight for us.
I'm very aware of that. I'll certainly be guided by a community consultation, and this is part of my consultation. And I'm here to listen. So that's my response.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. And thank you for coming along tonight and listening, Tim. There's a gentleman down there in a pink shirt.
Yeah, it's on. The LCD will just turn off.
Okay.
So, where are we going?
Joan, is that man there? Yeah. Kieran, yeah.
I think I've jumped the queue, sorry. There's been a KPMG survey being undertaken over the last few weeks. Part of it is a phone survey, a random phone survey to residents and businesses in the East End, and I keep asking a lot of the neighbours have they had a phone call yet, and I don't seem to get a response. So I'm just wondering if there's a quick show of hands. Has anyone received a phone call as part of that survey? And it's been going for 3 weeks, and I believe it's got 1 week to go, so it's just about finished.
So did anyone get the newsletter? Everyone was meant to get a flyer letting them know, and I didn't get the flyer.
Yeah, and I was just been pointed out that we were supposed to get a flyer about the... So there has been a few phone calls received?
No, but I contacted KPMG because they refer to it as a commercially available phone numbers, and I wondered what that was, and they said I'd have to ask the council.
So just to be clear, is there anyone in the room that's had a phone call yet? No. Right, so there's been someone called, yep. And a few by the look of it, yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
Car club was run. Who lives in Maryville? No. They're ringing car club people.
That man's had his hand up since the very beginning, and then we'll go down to the lady in the red down the back.
One of the things that I heard from a marketing expert many years ago is that they were here to sell the sizzle, not the sausage. When supercars came, they sold the sizzle when they came up with the number of 192,000. I'm a traffic engineer. I've actually counted directly some of the numbers of people that are actually walking in and out of the event. The number that they are claiming is totally wrong, and I want you to, when you make your representations to all of the government authorities and that you refer to the fact that what has been happening, we've been subjected to corporate data fraud. By giving those numbers, they've created a totally false impression as to what the impact of the event was having on this city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening. I'm just surprised there's been... It's gone off. Oh, thank you. That there's been no mention of the contribution by the Air Force. Has anybody... I don't think they've ever come on any other occasion, but it was appalling. So the Air Force should be called out. Who's going to do it?
I don't know. You write letters to the paper?
Well, what about this whole evening? They should know about it.
Christine?
the Air Force should be here and they should be informed about this meeting.
No doubt this meeting will have some coverage and it will get to people
I
at
mean,
the Air Force.
who invited the Air Force to come over with their jets?
The former member for Penrith, I imagine.
Look, we ought to know.
Yeah. Okay. Point taken. Thank you very much. Question down there, that man in the shirt down. Thank you.
Hi.
Shirt. He's got a shirt on.
Hi. I just have a quick question for Ash down the front. Thank you for your presentation. It was great. Do you have a overall number, dollar figure, for the losses that the 61 businesses incurred over the entire 9 weeks?
I do. Before we made this survey, I actually sent out a really comprehensive survey to all my fellow business people, asking them if they wouldn't mind stating exactly how much they did lose in dollars in the lead up, during the weekend and afterwards. And I offered my numbers to those businesses as a kind of show of faith. In the lead up, I did 2 studies. I compared this year to the exact same time last year, and this year to an average of any given month through 2022, because I wanted to show the potential, the general potential of my business, given the opportunity to trade. The comparison to same time last year, which I think should be the most accurate, we lost, I believe it was $25,000 in the bump-in lead up. During the week of the race, I think we lost about 15, that's just in the 1 week, 15,000. And in the bump out, I think it was a further 10. So this is all compared to the exact same time last year when we didn't have the race. Overall, it was, I think it was a grand total of $65,000. So, and that's one business, So I did one calculation that times that by, I don't know how many businesses I thought might be relevant to that same situation, maybe 150 businesses, and it accrued something up to $1.8 million. Oh, no, I'll have to get my notebook out for that one. But it was a lot. That's one business. And a few other businesses did throw their numbers in as well, and some of them had easily doubled mine, which was just absolutely shocking. So thank you for asking that.
Gentleman down there holding an umbrella.
Thank you. In the light of everything we've heard tonight, how are we supposed to reconcile the attempted promotion by the Council of Newcastle as a smart city?
The question, Christine, was how, given everything we've heard tonight, how are we supposed to reconcile what we've heard tonight with the promotion of Newcastle as a smart city? Yes, I think an excellent rhetorical question down there. There's a gentleman down there in a red shirt.
Yeah, hi there. I'd just like to add to the impact a bit more if I can. We operate a hospitality venue on Watt Street, so we're close to about a $500,000 loss for the total period of supercars. And that's a combination of lost potential trade plus direct losses while trying to trade through the weekend of the event. If it continues for another 5 years, we'll close our doors. Absolutely, 100%. It is, and we've tried to engage with council, supercars, everyone to try and do something different to try and recoup our losses, but we just get fobbed off, lied to. I've petitioned every level of our representatives, local, state, and just been told to suck it up. And so, yeah, that's our impact.
Excuse me, sir. Given the enormity of the figures that you just mentioned, and there are members of the media here, are you prepared to say what your business is?
Yeah, we're 48 Watt Street, the wedding venue on Watt Street.
I'm very sorry.
So, and we weren't involved in that other study that the lady did. We didn't know anything about it. And that's the other thing too, we don't often know anything. We don't get communicated anything from, especially not from council. So yeah, it's really frustrating. It's actually great to see the amount of support here tonight, because I really had no idea there was anyone, you know, with a similar level impacts as us. And we were a small business. It's my wife and I that own the business. And yeah, there's no way we can sustain that amount of loss. Yeah.
Very sorry to hear that. Kieran, down here in the middle on the right, my right.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Deborah. I have a son, Simon, who has an acquired brain injury, who lives on Scott Street. Many of you might know him, and I thank everyone who looks after him and watches out for him. The impact of the supercars is enormous, not just for him, but for his support workers who try to get to him of a morning to get him to work, of a night to help cook his meals, and it has effect on his emotional well-being. Once those barriers go up, he's just not the same person. And I also think about other people who have support workers or carers who come in to that Newcastle East vicinity who find it difficult to manage in that time period. He has to move out. He emotionally cannot stay there. His cat has to go to a vet, which costs him a lot of money. And that's just very difficult for people in Newcastle East, and for me to help him, support him through that time. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that story about your son, and certainly those kind of human stories and the human impact, besides the business impact, is something that I think we're going to hear more of. I've got someone over there.
Thank you. The State Heritage, or the Heritage Act, is outside of the Motor Racing Act. My question is, if this is the case, why does the State Heritage Council allow this to occur?
Good question. We've fought all of those battles as well. We've made so many submissions to so many groups, certainly to the Heritage Council. The Heritage Council set a whole lot of conditions for the first year.
Anybody still needs to sign.
But nobody polices them. You know, nobody's actually policing supercars. There's no policeman saying, oh look, the Heritage Office said you can't really do that. But they find sneaky ways around it. Sneakier ways around it. So, for example, in the first year they were supposed to resurface. You know, they built a motorway through a heritage conservation area. You know, how did they manage that? What they say they're going to say, the way they get away with it is they say it's a temporary event. It's a temporary event and it'll all go back to normal. So they were supposed to, but the Heritage then said, well, you'll have to regrass it. Well, what they got. You see there, the supercars are in a partnership, aren't they, with council? Council now have they have to pay the cost of all of these things now. Supercars didn't have to pay to regrass, and somehow or other it found its way that it was council's responsibility to do that. So council sat down and wrote a variation for the Heritage Office. And in the variation, they gave these beautiful, wonderful drawings of a playground, a temporary playground they were going to set up and rather than grass it over. And the Heritage Office passed it and said, oh, okay, that sounds like a good idea, at least it'll be used. But when it's all gone, they've got to grass it over. Now, council then got $500,000 from the Port Authority to provide all of the playground equipment, the temporary playground equipment. Can you see any down there? There's some weights and $500,000. Where did that money go? So that they work the system. We've spoken to the heritage people, and the heritage people don't like this event, but, they've got a minister in charge of them as well. The same with health. Kerry Chan didn't like this event either, but it's unreasonable to stop it. And that's the other thing. Heritage and health come into the debates when the deals have already been done, when the supercars have already been in and done a lot of their work. No one's going to say, well, you can't do it now. They say to us, it's unreasonable. We've called it the juggernaut effect. They've been way ahead of us. And the government departments just obey their masters in government.
Could we just ask anyone in the room who hasn't been able to sign the petition, if you could put your arms up, we'll get you a petition so that you can sign it before you leave.
All right. And I just thought too, the question before about who invited the Air Force, a legitimate question. You asked what could be done about it. I think one of the things that you could do is that you could put in a freedom of information request to the Air Force, seeking to know the costs of such a thing. To the Commonwealth, that application won't cost you anything in the first instance. So that's something you could do. Try and find out how much it cost to provide the fuel and to provide the service. NERG have done nearly 40 government information public access requests and freedom of information requests, and they'd be happy to talk with you. Christine here was here tonight. Any further questions? Gentleman down there, Kieran?
You were just mentioning costs and freedom of information. I think the council subsidises this event for about $4 million a year. I think that's what they admit or something, for essentially a 3-month rental on a pretty big area of land on the foreshore by people from outside Newcastle. Would that be about right? Even if it's $1.5 million, but they certainly subsidise it. So that's for 3-month rental on a pretty big area of land, but to an outside group. I'd just like to know, how much did council subsidise the 3-hour rental of this room by an internal group of Newcastle residents?
Christine, also Chief Accountant.
I think I know the answer is that they didn't subsidise it, and in fact NERD had to pay $370 for the 3-hour rental, didn't they?
Excellent.
By a group of Newcastle
Excellent answer to
residents.
your own question there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? I know you're all dying to get home and watch episode 2 of Succession. No further questions? Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for attending tonight. Give yourself a round of applause.
Thank you.